COVID years. So can you tell us what happened with selection for what would be this year's Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, COVID was a nightmare. Yeah, it's funny at the time. I think I just took it for granted. Like, I was at school. We heard gyms were being shut, tracks being shut, schools are going to be shut. I'm thinking, whoa, okay. And after the 2018 cycle, I was feeling really heartbroken, being honest. At that point, I'd been a sports psychologist years before when I was like maybe 21, 22. And when I first moved from Charlie, I was struggling to kind of fill the void that he'd had in my life. And at this point, I was struggling.
Because like you said, he was almost a psychologist as well as a coach because of your age, yeah.
I don't think you'd ever need to see a sports psychologist if you had a person like Charlie. Like, he was that kind of person that you could speak to anything about. Like, even if I had a problem with school, he'd be like, oh, yeah, cool, I could help you with that. Or he would just give you the common sense answer you needed to hear that kept things straight. Or he'd tell you not to worry about something silly, And as a teenage girl, having that kind of reassurance from someone, oh, cool, that's pretty, if he's saying that to me, he's been around a bit, like he's, 60s at that point. So yeah, having that kind of void, like, how do you fill that person that's been there for you for everything? And I think part of me still, like, that void will never be filled, I don't think. But I knew that, his dream and my dream had been, I was good enough to go to the Commonwealth Games. I always felt, okay, well, I owe this to him and the journey that we started years ago, that I'm going to give it a go. And I thought after 2018, I was like, could I really do this again? And it's always coincided that every time that I've had a Commonwealth game year I've missed out on, my next year after it's been an absolute killer year. Like, I've went for it. And it's because
you're almost off cycle by a year.
Yeah, it's all about timing, and I think something like might not go my way, or it might be like a multitude of events, like an injury, for instance, or illness. But when COVID hit, oh my word, like, from going from teaching, which in itself can be quite stressful, having it, I'm lucky that I got a contract. I was full time for a year, but I went back to my kind of reduced contract of 3 days, and I thought, right, for me to be making it and running, I can, live with my mum and dad, save up some money, and I can have 3 days training alongside my work, and I've got loads of free time outside of that, and that's going to really help. So 2018, lost faith in the kind of working relationship I had with Charlie, and also with Bill. At that point, I'm thinking, look, it's not quite went to plan. What's going on here? And decided that I needed to make a move. And I thought, there's nobody in my training group that's really taking it as seriously as I am. I need to be around people that are actually taking it seriously. So I got in touch with a coach who was actually based in Aberdeen, a guy called Eddie McKenna, who had, funnily enough, Charlie had coached him years ago. And it's all coming full circle. And I knew that he had a couple of people in his group. There was one girl who was funded or had been winning medals, and she was running a couple of seconds quicker than what I was. And there were some other athletes in the group that were pretty good. I thought, I've got nothing to lose here. I may as well get in contact with them and say, I know I live down here and you live up there, but is there any advice you can give me about, would you distance coach me, for instance, if I could just get on with the work here? And I don't think it's really done in sprinting, to be honest. I don't think it's done with many distance runners, but it's certainly easier to do with a distance runner than it is a sprinter, because the technical side isn't as important with a distance runner. And luckily he agreed to say, yeah, let's give it a go. We'll wait, because I contacted him that summer and he said, why about we try and meet up at the end of the summer in like the August time, September, and set a plan out. And I decided at that point, that void, I could really feel that kind of, I needed some support in that way. And I actually got in touch with my old coach, Charlie. I said, look, can you help me train for this New Year sprint, which was like 3-4 months away? And I'd had a calf issue that whole summer. So this calf issue had came up in 2016. It's came up in 2018. I'm going, what the hell's wrong with this calf? Like, why is it still being a problem now? Surely it's a strength thing. I need to get this sorted. And it turned out it was an Achilles issue. And I got a scan done. I was at the English Championships, and turned out the reason why I ran so poorly, I could barely run on my calf, was because I'd probably torn it. And also there's like a tendinopathy, like a swelling with the Achilles tendon. So luckily got an ultrasound, got told, yeah, you need to stop running. You need to let this go. So I had this new motivation of, well, I'd done some border games again. My calf had been an issue that whole summer after the kind of commie games kind of cycle. I thought, right, I need to give myself a kick here and get on with it. Got my ankle fixed, got my calf fixed. And at that point, I was running trainers a lot. I couldn't train a lot in spikes whilst it was healing. And Charlie was really supportive of that and said, well, I've got a couple of runners doing the New Year sprint as well. They're doing some rugby fitness. They're with me. you're welcome to come and join them. So of course I'm training myself at that point. And, Eddie was kind of supportive of me running with other people at that point to try and help me get back into some confidence back with my running as well. Because at that point you're thinking, well, I can't, my PBs from 2017, I PB'd in 2011 before that. I did 6 years of not quite PBing or being the best. So I'm going, right, okay, 2018, I'm going to really go for it. And then this will be a springboard, hopefully. Did my best in that year. We had no idea COVID was going to come. So, everyone's living freely. I was training up in Pechivi at the point because it made sense for me to drive up there. Did really well at New Year's Sprint when Charlie had helped me. I kept that going into indoors. Ran my quickest time in 10 years over a 60 metres, which is pretty ridiculous. To be run within 100th of my PB, and I'm training on my own. And I've done is change the way of how I train. So instead of training and running all the time, I was going to the gym on a Monday, doing lots of calf strengthening work and kind of body exercises that would help, like step ups and so on.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday, then gym again Wednesday, running again Thursday, day off Friday, so an active recovery day, then running again Saturday, and then my full day off Sunday. And the routine really helps. That was my typical week with working with the new group. And the way it worked was I'd maybe once a month or every 3 weeks drive up to Aberdeen, train with them, and then come back down the road. And I still felt part of a group. I felt part of, my own journey, really. But I knew that, I was quite determined that I was going to train as hard as I could to try and show my full potential, because I was like, I can't miss out again. 0.3 of a second is nothing.
Yeah.
If it wasn't me, it was going to be somebody else. So, I don't want to be in that position ever again. So I need to really work at this.
So was this almost one of the first times you were running? Not, I would say you were running in anger almost. Yeah.
I was really annoyed. Yeah, I think I was so happy at putting everything into that season. I think what I was more annoyed about was I didn't fully feel I had the right support, like when it came to race planning and things like that. Right. I think I was more angry at things. My ducks hadn't lined up in a row. I put everything in. I got 9 out of 10 things right, but to get picked, I needed that 10th thing right.
Yeah, and you were just almost trying to find. You were looking for, because you couldn't put a point on what was the thing that didn't go, but you were trying to find that.
So I just thought, like I'd worked with Bill for quite a while by this point. I thought I needed something to change. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, the reason why these athletes up there are doing so well is maybe Eddie's input. So I thought, give it a try, and it won't do any harm to try something new, that's for sure. I think, a bit like the kind of academic side, having that new thing to focus on helped.
Yeah.
It gave me a purpose. I felt, okay, I'm part of something. And we'd speak on the phone once a week, and he was quite busy working, which again, my previous coaches had both been retired, so they had a lot more time to speak to you and free time and time to see you at training and so on. Whereas now I'm going from my boyfriend helping support me at the running sessions 2-3 times a week, and I'm in the gym myself, just doing the sessions as I should be, or teaching myself how to do things. And I met a really good friend in the gym, a friend called Hannah, who noticed both her and I were the only 2 people wanting to try and use the lifting platforms. And I'm there doing my calf raises, and she's there doing all her exercises. So, I thought it's going to be quite a lonely sport. And I think meeting all these new people at the gym and being aware of, like if I want to get back running, I need my calf completely sorted and strong. So I ended up speaking to her, and then obviously I had a good indoor season, made it to the British Championships indoors, had quite a good, my quickest times for a long time, the 200 indoors and the 60, and then came outdoors. And in the April time, that's typically by this point you're kind of thinking about early season openers. And I decided to hold off for a month. I thought I'm just going to be a bit slower to open up my races. I think I'll wait to the start of May. Okay. And at the same point, I'm trying to still teach. This is the busiest term for me. So I've got sports day, I've got report writing due, I've got PE students if they're there on a placement, I've got loads of different things going on. And I'm also deciding, my first race is just going to be a midweek one after work. This is a great idea. But I'd put so much consistent training together that my first race was my fastest ever opener. Came out and ran like 55.6 and thought that was pretty good. And I ran a 150 beforehand, which is not really a race that's done very often. I ran a big PB in that as well. I thought, this is pretty good. Had another couple of races, a couple of weeks' time, and I ended up with my first Scotland selection. I'd had one in 2017, but this time in 2019, it's my first ever 400-metre selection. So for committing to this other distance, finally things are going right for me. Finally, everything's going where it should be. I turn up to Loughborough. I have a massive season's best in the 400. From 54.9, I get down to 54.4. My second quickest time ever. I'm like, this is brilliant. I kind of run a form here. I get told, yeah, you're in the 4x4, you're the last leg now. You're going to be up against the quick folk. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. But now not only have I got my first individual selection, now the quickest in the team, and now you're going for it and putting the baton. And it's one of my favourite ever races. And I remember my parents were there to watch along with Callum, and I'd given the baton. I must have been about 30, 40 metres down on the leader, and about 20 metres down on the girl in front of me. And I just got the baton. I must have forgot what race I was doing, because I went tanking off, caught the girl in front of me by the 200-metre mark and right up behind her, get to 250, and I start to feel a bit blurry because I think I'd went out that hard. The lactic must have hit a bit harder than I'd thought. Got down to about the last home straight, and we were both catching the girl in front, and the crowd on the balconies going absolutely wild, and I'm kind of going for it. And at this point, I can't really see where I'm going because I'm that tired that I veer from like lane 2 out into lane 4, bizarrely. And there's this really funny series of pictures of me falling over the line, trying to aim the line to try and catch this girl in second. I missed her by that. I don't know how, but I ended up with like one of the quickest splits of the whole relay. I was like 54.1 I got given her. I think some people thought I was just under 54 seconds. My PB was 53.9, so I've ran a PB split
in a relay,
having ran a 400 early in the day. So that whole summer I was like, wow, like if that's how you do a 400 meters, like I've somehow sussed this out. This is the event for me now.
Yeah. You just have to accept the mild blurry vision at the final 100.
Yeah, and like I think as well, like training on my own, I'm thinking, what the heck? I'm doing this running on my own. Yeah. I don't have anyone to pace me. I'm running against me and my shadow, and I've got Callum barking at me, going like, "You've only got 2 minutes left, recovery." And anyone who's done like any team sport knows that it's always easier having folk around you.
Yeah, there's motivation there. Yeah.
Yeah, and having somebody to beat in training. So having like faster athletes is a no-brainer. I was just really lucky. There was a couple of groups up there that occasionally, if my boyfriend was busy and couldn't get across from work, that one of the coaches there would support me and time my rep to see how fast I was. So I ended up making a few kind of connections there. And throughout the summer, I just kept kind of improving. I had a good couple of races across in Belgium, 2 days back to back. Went into the British Championships and Scottish Championships and all the kind of big season championships at the end of the year. And I actually got picked to run for Scotland again in Manchester in 2019. And this is one I had to ask for a day off of school. I had to message and be like, really sorry, it's the first week back, but I've been selected to run for Scotland. Any chance that I can miss the in-service day and I can make this day up in our time or whatever? And he's like, oh no, don't worry about it. Like, that's fine. You go. Nobody gets PE like the first week anyway back, because it's a short week. So you just do your planning, no problem. So I ended up going down there, and I've been picked for a really bizarre set of events. So I was picked for the 400, then the 200, then the 4x1. So I was going longest to shortest of the order of events, and I was like, is that right? Was I meant to be picked for a 4x1? Do you not mean a 4x4?
Yeah, like, you almost phone somebody to be like, have I got the wrong sheet?
I was
and
like,
would you conventionally do it the other way around? So you'd start shorter distances and go to the longer instead of long to short?
It's just it's like, it's always typical. Like sprinters always start like shorter distances and like go longer throughout like the day. Like timetables always like short sprints are on first. But bizarrely, like the way the timetable was, I was one of the first events. I was on at 7:00 at night, and I was the first event. So I'm in a team meeting and just going up to the team meeting. Alan Scott, the kind of team manager, was like, "Would you like to be team captain today?" And I'm like, "Huh? What? Me? Like really?" And I'm looking around the room, and you've got people like Steph Reed in the team, who's a Paralympic like medalist. And she was competing in our team. I'm looking at her. I was like, should she not be the captain? Like, you know, looking in the room, and she's achieved more in sport than I have. And he's like, no, Stacey, I'd like you to do it. So it was a pole vaulter, Jack Storrs, who'd been at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow.
Right.
And it was me as the female captain. And I was just like honoured to be asked. I was just like, okay, this ups the ante slightly. Got the 400, I've got the 200, I've got 3 events to get through. It's quite a lot in one evening. Ran my 400, had a quite a decent time, like 55 flat, but I was only 3rd or 4th. I wasn't quite where I wanted to be. And it was like every race I kind of did better, but it was horrendous conditions, torrential rain, having to hide under the side of Manchester Arena whilst the 200s were postponed because you couldn't see the track. We had to wait for 15, 20 minutes and try not to get too cold. So I ended up just missing a medal on that. I was 4th, but like with the smallest of margins. And it came to the 4x1, and I was in the warm-up area. I was getting a bit of cramp. I thought, right, I need to watch this. I've still got 4x1 to do. So I was on the last leg, and I thought, this is the glory leg. why they put me here? Like, I'm better on a bend. Because at some time in my career, I think I've done every single leg for Scotland, first, second, third, fourth. Depends who else is on the team.
Okay.
So in the fourth leg, and luckily the cramp went away. I mean, I held on and we got a silver. And I just thought, this has paid dividends. Like, I feel like I need, a medal to kind of finish the season with. So I went from that week. It was a really busy week. Got picked for Manchester on the Wednesday, Scottish champs are on the Saturday, Sunday following that. Turns up the Saturday to find out that there wasn't quite enough people for a 400-metre heat. So warm up, then go home again, and then come out the next day. I thought, I might do the double today. I kind of fancy my chances. I've had one less run than I thought I was going to do. I'm going to turn up for the 200 as well. So I won my 200-metre heat quite comfortably in 24.6 or something. I thought, that was good. That was a good warm up for the 4. Went out and won the 400. So it was my first ever 400-metre title, indoor, outdoor. It was just amazing that my whole year had been built up to win this. And came out in the 200-metre final a couple of hours later. My legs were gone, but I'm trying to hide it from my competitors that my legs were done. Came out the blocks and I thought, I don't think I've got it today. But I just put the foot down and just thought I'll do my best. And I came third. And I ran a season's best that day, 24.4. So I was pretty chuffed at not having
That's not bad for somebody that thinks they've got nothing in their legs.
Yeah, so obviously all that training on my own and obviously getting back the rehab, I was so meticulous with everything I did that year. Even every race I'd have a massage after it and so on. Like, I pretty much lived my life how I thought a professional athlete should be living it. And
you were a pro athlete on the non-funded budget.
Yeah. So throughout my whole career, apart from the Tweeddale Sports Council, who funded me really, generously for travel out with the region, I've not had any funding since I was 21. I had that private sponsor, but then I've had nothing. So I've been self-funding my whole career. So I think a large part of my decisions have been, right, okay, how can I get enough money to support my training? Or, I've got to, be an adult and I can't rely on my parents for absolutely everything. I've got to go and do my thing as well. And it's just, it's not easy. I think I really would encourage youngsters to kind of think about if they really want to get down and be a professional in sport. You've got to kind of plan your path and you need to really think, because it's a shame to think money is a limiting factor in a lot of people's careers, or injury, for instance, or not getting the right support from the right people around them. Environment's so key. So I think with COVID, that hit another kettle of fish. So that year had been amazing. I couldn't have done much more. I went down to British Championships the week after the Scottish Championships, and I thought I was done mentally and physically. Went down there and ran one of my quickest ever times for the year, and ran my quickest ever time, the 200 at the British Champs, and had a great competition. And it was the last one at the Alexander Stadium before they stopped, tore it down for the Commonwealth Games. I finished off my season at a relay championships for Edinburgh AC, where we won the 4x1. And I went to Pitlochry Highland Games and I won the 90 and the 200 metres, and we picked up Charlie and took him up for the day out. So it was it was coming full circle. It's like I'd achieved my dreams that year.
Yeah.
But I'd had my very first coach Charlie involved. I've had Eddie involved. I've had this new setup which I've put together, which for the most part worked pretty well. And then went into that winter, and then March time hit. I'm about to start competing in April, May time, and to be told you can't go on the track. We're outdoors.
Yeah.
Why can you not compete? I just found it bizarre. But there was 3 months where I don't think anybody could access anything. Then there was only elite sports people, and it wasn't until
did you constitute as the elite sport?
Nope.
No, which is baffling as a GB athlete that you don't constitute as elite sport.
No, so you have to be on funding to count. So regardless of me winning medals in the past or being a Scottish champion or an internationalist, to be considered funded, you need to be on institute funding, which was maybe you were a couple of percent within or beside the Commonwealth Games standard. So if I'd been say 0.1 of a second quicker, I might have been considered when I was younger, that sort of thing.
So how did your life change there? In terms of the sheer just a day, because you've gone from 6 day a week workouts, or 6 day a week workouts, six times a week workout, to you were in the same boat as all of us, where at some point it was you're not allowed outside, to you've got an hour a day, make the most of it.
Oh yeah, I found it really difficult. I needed a routine, so I think I thought the best thing I can do is keep my training days the same, and whatever day I was doing this on, just adapt. So local parks became my friends. When your hour exercising was that, I'd be right, I'm going off to a local park. I'm going to go and run there. and just find a gap. Because, as soon as the good weather started, everybody's in the park,
Everybody was there. Yeah.
because nowhere else was open. And then by the time you could finally get back onto a track, I was like, brilliant, okay. This is somewhere I need to get back. And again, I'm probably not the only athlete in this boat, but I know in Scotland, especially down in England and Wales, they allowed you access a lot sooner than they did up here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing on social media people getting access a lot earlier than what I'd done. I'm thinking, okay, well, what's happening up here? Surely we deserve the same thing. COVID surely is something that we're all living with. Is there not all a way for us to live with this and to, see how, because athletics is mostly an outdoor sport. It's the summer, right? So what's the problem? So it was, trying to find different training venues for me. I was training on hills, on a hilly road. I was training in local parks. Found this track at Dalkeith eventually, July,
Mm-hmm.
August time of that year, when I realised it was open. It was an actual place you could go train. It wasn't easy. And I guess having nothing to train for was the hard bit.
I suppose, yeah, as well, because everything stopped competition-wise as well. So you'd gone from, so in my understanding, you've gone from almost, so at this point in 2019, you're just turning 30, aren't you?
Yes, I was 30.
Yes, you've just passed you've just entered your 30s. So you've gone from the age of 13, where you've had this competition's the goal, this competition's the goal, this is the next target, and because that's 20 years, that's 2 decades of what you're working towards. So you've now been told you've not got access to anything you're doing, you don't know what you're doing for, and there's no here's the big picture.
No.
Did it feel in a weird way when you then got to the play park and you kind of looked around and you went, it's not too dissimilar to Leithen Rovers football pitch? Was there a little bit of not the full circle moment, but you're like, I kind of like the familiarity of this?
Yeah, I think because I trained in grass a lot before, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is fine. Yeah, I still have my long pins somewhere. I'll just change my spikes. I put long pins in. And actually, like, the only bit that, a couple of body parts took a while to adjust, like hamstrings and stuff. But again, it felt very much like back in the days of, right, let's try and find the best bit of grass to run on that's got the least holes.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel much different. And I think, I've always been quite self-motivated, I think, because I had that year of training on my own. And then, that next winter, like, we explored other people to run with. And I think that was the next stage. Had COVID not hit, I would have probably had some athletes around me to help push me on a bit more. So I would have had the same setup, but pushed on a bit more with other athletes. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get a chance to have a go. So I feel like, I've done the best I could 2018, 19, get back in a great shape. Had a really good winter 2019, didn't quite get to show it in 2020. And then when things started to open up again, everybody's kind of at that point where nobody knows how fit anybody is. And it's like some folk wanted to compete, some folk didn't. And the end of 2020, I was out. I kind of got to the point of, well, I need to get some more cardio behind me. If I want to run better in a 100, the thing missing for me, being asthmatic, I need to try and push it a bit harder, or even just some short runs that are like 5 minutes long or something. So near my parents' house, there's a really nice hill. You kind of run up and it flattens out. And I thought, right, I'm just going to keep trying every couple of days to try and beat how far I get on this in a certain time, or I'm going to try and keep running this route. It was the same route I'd done as a kid. I thought, I'm just going to go back to this. It seemed to work at the time. And I'd run there and just see how far it took. And my target was like, I'm going to get to that corner in 2 minutes 15, because that's about half a mile away. I thought 250 on the roads for an 800 is not bad. It was just a rough estimate. And I remember doing that. And I remember with September came in 2020, and I was like, came home from work. I'm out running, and I had to jump into the grass verge really quickly because a car was coming. I hadn't seen me. I was wearing bright colours. And I stood up. I could barely stand up. And I looked down at my foot, and I thought, oh. And I ruptured all ligaments in my foot. I didn't know this at the time, but I could barely walk, and I'm trying to hobble home.
And this was late 2020?
Yeah, and nobody knows this. I've not told anyone I had that injury, apart from my boyfriend.
Yeah.
So having that injury, I couldn't walk properly. I was on crutches for 3 months. I couldn't barely jog. So there's me trying to head and hands going, what the hell was I doing going out running when it was getting slightly dark? I should have just waited till the morning. And yeah, getting that injury, I could only start properly jogging on Christmas Eve of 2020. And then I was back running in March in Spike in 2021.
So you missed the whole of the warm up into the season again.
So 6 months worth of just trying to walk properly. So I think this is why it makes, having COVID, I kind of look back and think, what was I doing? I was trying to keep fit, but I was also trying to push on, and I was in really good shape. It's just such a shame that happened. COVID, I think, has been a blessing in disguise. It's allowed me to have more of a life balance, which was nice at the time. But yeah, I suppose that could have happened to anybody going over on your ankle. But it's just, I look back and thinking, because it's just like since then, like for me to get back in shape since that injury, I've worked so hard to get fit for this year. And for the first time ever, I've won the 400 indoors. And I kept setting myself new targets. And this medal here, like, is my last Scottish title. And I thought, this means even more than any of the other ones, because nobody knows what I've had to overcome just to get back on the start line, let alone be competitive. And then it turns out, I made a bit of history with winning that one. I thought, COVID's not going to take away, like, my running. Like, I've lost a couple of years' worth of racing here. And I didn't realise at the time until I looked at some of my results. I thought, well, wait, now I've actually now won every sprint you could win indoors. So yeah, thinking back to like what the events were, like you could win in Scotland, so indoors you could win the 60, the 200 or the 400. So since 2011, I'd won the 60 and the 200 away back in 2009 or something. But then I've now added the 400 in 2022. So I've had like...
So you've got all three of the indoors.
So I've won them all indoors at various points, plus the relay indoors a couple of times. And then outdoors, that 400 outdoors in 2019. Plus, I've now matched that with the 2022 indoor one. I've now won the 100, the 200, and the 400 outdoors, which apparently nobody had done.
So you've won every single Scottish medal that you can win.
Yeah. And I didn't know this at the time. I was just literally wanting to run in that 400, try and push for confident, for a time for the commies, thinking it get as quick as possibly can. And then I ran 2 indoor personal bests and I've then won that gold. And I thought, wow. Like to run that in, February, the COVID also postponed a lot of competitions. So my chance to run a 400 had to be put back about 3 weeks because the class to 400 meters is an event that involved like contact. Because you have
suppose, because you merge lanes, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So they thought there was a risk that people might catch COVID of each other. And, well, fair enough. So all the 400 metres, the 800 metres and distance events were held separately on a Friday night through in Glasgow. And I went through to the Emirates that week, tried the track out and, worked on a few race plans and then went out and ran. And the 400 indoors is notoriously pretty difficult to judge. You can either go out too hard, but again, it's 2 laps. And this suited me quite well because I thought, great, it's just 2 200s. Brilliant. I've done this a lot in training. And a few weeks before, I prepared for it with a 60 metres and ran, a really quick time for me, only 0.1 off my PB. And I thought, that's my quickest ever opener as well. So I'm in pretty good shape, despite, thinking that potentially my career might have been over with that injury I'd had, because that was other athletes that had the same, never got back to the shape they had before. So yeah, I think this year was always going to be a case of just get as fit as I possibly could. In pretty good shape at the start of the season. Couple of niggles with my calf, which came and kind of went again. I thought, right, okay, time to put some races down and I start the 2022 season. Unfortunately, the COVID that I managed to avoid, the whole of the actual COVID lockdown period for 2 years, I pick up at the start of June this year. I'm like, are you actually joking?
Oh, no.
Went down to London, competed for the National Athletic League for the club, and I think about 6 or 8 of us picked it up on the plane on the way back. Absolutely devastated, but I knew that, I still had time. This is the start of June, the qualification period ends. I've still got a bit of time. Very lucky that my COVID came and went as quick as it arrived. But before I actually realised I was positive, so it took me about a week to develop symptoms. I went and raced in that other period, went down to Birmingham, a place near Nuneaton, and I was halfway round. I thought, this 400 is going pretty well, great, I've hit the right pace. And halfway round, I was like, I can't breathe. What's going on? Finished my race. Felt really out of breath. I thought my time's quicker, but still, I didn't feel right. There's something not right here. Turned out the next day I tested positive for COVID, and I thought, okay, I must have got that in one of these competitions I've been at. It's likely to have been on the plane. So I had to obviously self-isolate and couldn't train, had to rest up for that weekend. and I had planned a race in Switzerland the next week to get my last race in before the qualification period hit. And I was very much going, right, come on, COVID test, you need to test negative, come on. And every day taking them, and it was Monday morning, testing negative, thought, great, I'll book my flight and go. So I've entered this competition, but it was very much, I might have been able to go. And to think that an illness or something like that can stop you competing. Like, I ran the Scottish Championships, like, not a lot of people knew this, but I was feeling rough that day from really bad cold that I'd picked up. And I just took an inhaler and ran. I just thought, I need to just go for it. But COVID's a different kettle of fish. It's not a cold. It was.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So yeah, a bit disappointed not to quite perform the way I should have done this year before the cut-off. I think that's what this year's been a lot of challenges. I think a lot of people have had the same COVID thing. I think maybe getting slightly older, that different ways of training suited me actually. Less running, more strength-based. But it's just a shame it's not all quite came together at the right time. I think I'd entered the World Masters Championships way back in April thinking, yeah, that can maybe be part of my year. It might be a good way to prep for the Commonwealth Games, a big competition right before it, good atmosphere, And I remember, thinking, right, okay, Commonwealth Games might not happen for me. Why don't we just go out there and just see what I can do? I think it came at the right time. It really did. I was in an airport in Poland when I discovered the team for the Commonwealth Games. And it's really hard to be on a plane on your own. You're flying to Finland. But no one to kind of share that disappointment with. I just remember looking at it going,
once again. Yeah. I
just thought, this dream, what's happening? Is this meant to be? I thought, really is, I just thought I must be, from what all I've achieved in the sport, the one thing you'd think, and a lot of athletes have always asked me this is, oh, you've been to that Commonwealth Games, haven't you? I was like, no. You've been to that one? No. And I think that's what the dream that's always kept me going, this thing that Charlie and I kind of grew. Because I was like, right, World Masters Championships, didn't really tell many people I'd went out here actually. I don't think even told Charlie I was coming. Decided to go out there, and my boyfriend wasn't able to come, he was working. So I was out there myself, and I thought, right, let's go out and perform. I know nobody I'm competing against. This is a great opportunity to just go and run. And I ran the 200 metres on the Sunday, the 3rd. I guess the one thing I didn't touch on with COVID was everything changed for me. I changed running coach again, still distance coached by someone else, and then I've still got no one to run with, but every track's shut. You're not allowed to use the track because you're not a member of that club. All these silly rules started up. So everything in my life changed. My physio, the business went bust, unfortunately, so I now had to get a new physio, I had to get a new massage therapist. My podiatrist emigrated to Australia, I had to get a new podiatrist. I had to get every single support network that I'd built up around me had changed.
Wow.
Every single one. And I was like, I don't think this often happens. You often lose maybe a couple people in your team, but the whole team. So that's been in itself, the fact that I've done all of this on my own.